Hi Year 7 and welcome to Lesson 2 of your Summer 2 term on musicals. Today you are going to need with you your booklet for Lesson 2, a pen. You might also need an instrument. You do have one here, remember. And can I just make sure to remind you, no distractions. Put that phone away. So what I'd like us to do by the end of today's lesson is to be able to listen and identify different musical instruments, but also elements as well. Understand more about the genre of musicals, a little bit more information to come from that, and to practice a performance from a musical. You have 1 minute to do this task. What I would like you to do is write as many different instruments as you can in 1 minute. Start your time now. Some examples there. Pause the video now. Okay, going through, you could have any of the following. You could have your ukulele, you could have a guitar, both acoustic and electric, you could have a bass guitar, you could have a flute, a clarinet, an oboe, a bassoon. The list goes on and on. If I were you, what I would do is I'd just double check all of your answers. And by the way, computers do count. Okay, moving on. What I would like you to do is match the instrument sound with the instrument name that you hear on the left hand side. You have 5 choices of clarinet, violin, trumpet, timpani and piano. I am going to play you each sound twice. Just in your booklet, just write down which you think the clarinet is, whether it's sound 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. Here's sound 1 for the first time. And here's sound 1 again for the second time. Okay, here's sound 2 for the first time. Sound 2 again for the second time. Just a reminder, you're matching up what the instrument name is with the sound. Sound 3 for the first time. It's one of my favourite ones, that one. Sound 3 again for the second time. Sound 4 for the first time. Sound 4 again for the second time. And finally, sound 5 for the first time. And sound 5 for the final time. Now, if you want to pause the video now, just to make sure that you're absolutely spot on with your answers, I'm going to be going through the answers in a second. So just pause the video now. Okay, let's move on to some answers. So the clarinet was in fact sound number 5. The violin, string instrument, was sound number 4. The trumpet, our highest brass instrument, was sound number 2. Timpani, my favourite, sound 3. And the piano was sound 1. Well done if you got all those correct. Please make sure to mark them as you are going through. Now, I know we went through this information about musicals last lesson, but I thought it'd be really interesting to just put it up on the screen again, just to remind anybody who hasn't gone through that or didn't quite understand something. Pause the video now if you feel that you need to just have a quick scan through of that. This is what you wrote into your booklets last lesson. Okay, so just a little bit of history about the musical. Opera is kind of where musicals really derived. It was seen as, the opera was seen as very elitist, so only really posh people would go, and therefore musicals came out of that. Opera is a form of theatre where music plays a leading role. The story of an opera is told through singing and acting, and there's typically no spoken dialogue. There's a huge array of scenery, costumes, and at times ballet. Operettas were a popular form of musical theatre during the 19th and 20th century. They were much shorter than operas and tended to have much more lyrical melodies, and therefore a lot of people preferred them. There started to be the inclusion of spoken dialogue between songs as well. We're getting more towards the musical that you know. An example of a musical that kind of hits this is Showboat, which was produced in 1927, and it's considered to be the first American musical. Jerome Kern composed the music while Oscar Hammerstein wrote the book and the lyrics. I would really recommend at this point pausing the video and looking at some of the other work that Oscar Hammerstein did. Rodgers and Hammerstein, I'm sure lots of people are aware of. It was the first musical where comedy was really used to integrate the plot, and therefore the music and the choreography came out of that as well. Now, some suggested listening. I'd like you to listen to the piece Popular from Wicked, and I'd like you to think about the following and write this in full sentences. So I'd like you to explain a little bit about the tempo. Remember, tempo is the speed of the music, so how fast or slow it was. You've got some lovely terms there. Okay, so fast, the Italian term for fast is allegro, moderate, moderato, slow, adagio. You could really push yourselves now, Year 7, to be including these words within your work. Remember, be writing in full sentences. I'd also like to talk about the texture of the music, so how many layers you think there are in there, whether you think there's lots going on and therefore it's a thick texture, or very little and therefore there's a thinner texture. The dynamics, remember, that means how loud or quiet the piece is. Now, I've only put the Italian terms on there because I think that's where you should all be at this point, should being the main word. But just a reminder that forte means loud, piano means quiet, crescendo means gradually getting louder, mezzo forte means medium quiet, and diminuendo means gradually getting quieter. Now, could you show me the journey of the dynamics? It's not all going to be forte the whole way through. Could it perhaps have a diminuendo at some point? Have a think about it. Instrumentation, talk to me about any instruments that you hear. I will allow you to write into a list. But just remember, rather than just saying voice, go that step further now, Year 7. Really think about how you can really push your answers. And do you think the pitch of the majority of this piece is high or low? Pause the video now. There is a link in the description box to a YouTube link of Popular from Wicked. Please make sure to listen to this and add as much detail as you can into your answer. Now, continuing on with your solo performance practice, it might be that you absolutely feel that you did loads last lesson and therefore you don't need to spend as much time on this during today's lesson. Lots of you picked a piece last lesson from a musical, and I would like you to please practice that, because at the end of next time's lesson, you will be starting to think about performing that to somebody. So really what I'd like you to do is make sure that you write 3 SMART targets in your booklet to really go alongside that. Pause the video now and make sure to give yourself as much practice as you can on this piece from a musical. Remember, you are going to be performing this next lesson. End the video now. Make sure to like and subscribe so you see the next one. Complete activities 2.5 and 2.6. Thanks everyone.